My first novel was a complete disaster. I spent 6 months diligently working on it, only to end up throwing all of it in the bin just last week. And instead of hiding under a rock like I'm so tempted to do, I thought I would come on here and share my experience with you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. So without further ado, here are the top 10 ways you should not write your first draft. Number 1 is underplotting. There's a lot of discourse in the writing community about pantsing versus plotting, and you might find yourself wondering which of those categories you fit into. But honestly, at this stage, if this is your first ever manuscript, do not worry about it, because you have not internalized story structure to the extent where you could be able to pants a book. So you might actually be a pantser, but that's something you can find out more in the future, because for right now, you just need to give yourself clear tent poles at the very least. You need to have major story markers set in place so that you don't get completely overwhelmed when things inevitably change. Number 2 is not fleshing out your characters. Remember that the characters that you have are the heartbeat of your novel. You could have the most interesting, fast-paced thriller or amazing plot in mind, but if you don't have a real sense of who your characters are, there are going to be roadblocks along the way. Because I made the mistake in the beginning of, especially with my side characters, kind of just treating them more like their roles within the story. So you have like the best friend, or the antagonist, or the love interest. But when you start developing new plot threads and your story starts changing, your characters will need to be the ones who guide you there. And so to build on that idea, when I say flesh out your characters, I don't just mean figuring out their speaking quirks or their favorite foods. Even though those things are very nice to have and they do help to build a cohesive sense of who a character is, what you really need to understand is how a character makes decisions, how they navigate conflict, and how they fundamentally view the world. Because a good book will require characters with agency. It can be hard to notice when things are simply happening to your character versus them making active choices that actually move the plot forward, because these active choices are what is going to give your story a natural sense of momentum and causality. Number 3, this is the big one, over-editing. I cannot stress this enough, but you need to completely forget about prose. Forget about sharpening every word and making it super rich and delightful. Just don't go back and reread what you've written and try to perfect it. It's a surefire way to kill your motivation. And a lot of people told me this advice in the beginning, and I kind of ignored it, because I thought I was saving time. I thought that editing me would really appreciate having these beautiful sentences in the beginning. Now, I totally understand why people do this, because for me as well, I take a lot of delight in the craft, and so just seeing a really beautifully written paragraph would motivate me to keep going. But the problem with that is that no matter who you are, if it's your first draft, things are going to change. You'll have plot threads that you'll need to drop, you'll have things that you'll need to bring in earlier, and so inevitably there will be entire scenes that you will have to cut. And if that's one of the beautifully written scenes, you're going to want to punch yourself when that happens, and it's going to be harder for you to be objective about what needs to be removed. So try not to over-edit and just push through and know that you can refine things later. But for a small pro tip, if you really need to scratch that itch of seeing something beautifully crafted, you can work on something small on the side, like a short story or a poem. Anything where you can get that instant satisfaction of well-crafted prose without letting it bog down your main draft. Number 4 is forgetting to replot when things change. So in a similar vein, while I say you shouldn't go back and edit, I do think you need to adjust your roadmap if things change. Because first drafts are basically your space for exploration. It's you telling the story to yourself and figuring it out. But if you make major changes, especially early on, you will need to sit down and do a little bit of replotting. It doesn't have to be down to the chapter or the scene level, but you need to know where your major tentpoles are in the story, because that ensures that the book will not go completely off the rails, and then by the time you reach the 70 or 80% mark, you're looking at this thing that's broken beyond belief and wondering how to fix it. And if it sounds like that happened to me, it's because it did. Number 5, and this is far more common than you might think, don't rewrite Act 1. Now, Act 1 is the easiest section for your book, and so a lot of people will just stay there to avoid going into the messy middle where things get super complicated, because Act 1 is where you have all the juicy world building, the introduction to your characters, the inciting incident, and so a lot of people will just try and fix the beginning of their book by rewriting it. But in order to understand what's missing from the beginning, You need the whole story first. You need to make it all the way through the end so you have this cohesive thing in front of you. Because if you're like writing chapter 12, let's say, and you realize that you need a brand new character that you should have introduced in the beginning, a lot of people might be tempted to go and just reshape the entire beginning, but I would say just write the scene as if it always existed, keep going, keep chugging through, finish the book first, and trust me that you will have a way better sense of how the beginning should look once you've reached the end. Number 6 is writing for your imaginary reader. Now, I'm so guilty of this. All I've ever wanted is to write a really good book, and I kept on thinking about every single decision I was making through the lens of my hypothetical reader. You know, will they like this character? Is this too much tension for them? Is this too weird for them? It completely took me out of the process because it made writing feel like I was like hammering down this piece of steel instead of having a piece of clay that I was shaping into something beautiful, which is how I think writing should feel. Now, presumably, you do want people to eventually read your book, but taking on like a 60 to 90,000 word manuscript, it's a massive endeavor, and it requires a lot of persistence, resilience, and a strong sense of internal motivation. So on a very fundamental level, you do need to write for you. You need to sit at your laptop and just light up at the thought of spending time in that world, of being with those characters. Because if you're not doing that, you're gonna run out of steam very quickly. And if you write your first book for someone else, it'll take the magic right out of it, and then it will start to feel dreary, just like a corporate job does. At least that's how it was for me. So don't make that same mistake. Number 7 is prioritizing word count over progress. As someone who had never written a book before, I religiously tracked my word count. But it wasn't because I wanted to have these markers of progress, but instead it kind of became like a stick to beat myself with, because I was comparing myself to seasoned writers who can write like somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 words a day. So on days where I only managed to get 400 or 500 words in, I was just beating myself up. And sometimes, just to force the word count to increase, I would end up just kind of writing on autopilot, where I wasn't really connected to what I was doing. I was just pounding out on the keyboard in a desperate attempt to see this momentum or to feel like the project was close to being finished. Writing is a long journey, my friends. You need to find ways to enjoy the process. Remember that word count is just one metric for story progression, so don't hold yourself to arbitrary standards. Instead, try to set up a writing routine, just something that works for you, a few hours in the day that you dedicate to writing, and see how much you get done. So by the end of the week, you'll have a general estimation on what a weekly word count looks like for you, but that's more to just get a sense of your personal baseline rather than a standard that you need to meet every time. Number 8 is writing in a genre that you don't actually read. When I first started my book, I wanted it to be serious, like literary fiction with psychological elements to it, and I very quickly realized that that was not working. But even after I shifted genres, I found myself shying away from adding romance elements or lighter tropes because I was worried that it wouldn't match the tone of a more serious book. But the truth is, most people in this world are reading for pleasure, and if you're watching this video and you're attempting your first ever novel, chances are you're writing genre fiction, so you have to look at the things that you personally find pleasurable in novels and try to put those in your book. Don't be afraid to draw inspiration from the works that you really love, because you know those tropes best. For me personally, I deeply regret not including more cozy, magic, and romance in my first book, but I will certainly not be making that mistake with my second one. Number 9 is expecting it to be publishable. This might sound really harsh. It's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way, because obviously when I first started, I expected it to be eventually publishable, even if it wasn't, in the beginning. I thought that if I just worked at it and I edited it and I rewrote it enough times, it would be usable. And that's not untrue, because plenty of people do end up revising their first draft and making it into something beautiful and polished. But what I would say is, don't expect it, because I tied all of my expectations into this book. I'd heard the advice that any draft can be edited into a publishable manuscript, but my first time writing a book, it was really just like a giant, messy crash course in the art of writing a book. You're making mistakes, you're figuring things out, there are structural issues, and because I had so many expectations tied to this attempt, I had a lot of regret and pain, and I literally cried buckets when I realized that this was unusable. But I wish I hadn't set out with those expectations to begin with. Because I really went into it with the wrong intention. I didn't look at it as a playground or an experiment. I looked at it as a product. And I don't want you to hold your first draft to that same standard. I want you to allow yourself to play first. And if in the process you do end up with something that you actually want to publish, then just look at that as a happy bonus, not the reason that you're doing it in the first place. Number 10 is losing sight of why you're doing this. Last but not least, don't lose sight of why you started in the first place, because parts of this process are designed to be really, really challenging. You might find yourself questioning your talent. You might find yourself very demotivated. You might find yourself wondering why you're doing this in the first place. So for my second book, I'm gonna do something differently, and I'm gonna write myself a letter before I start about every single reason why writing the story matters to me. So for a few examples, it could be that I really want to reconnect with the playful part of me that loves to create. Or I want to write this book for the part of me that lights up whenever I encounter a book or a movie that I just cannot stop thinking about. Or, I want to write myself something that brings me great comfort to read, something that I wish already existed out in the world. Or even that I want to practice creating something with real authenticity. Notice as well that none of my whys have anything to do with whether it will get published, how many people will read it, or if anyone will even like it. Because you have to find the whys that matter to you. Because when things get tough, and they 100% will get tough, you need a solid anchor that reminds you to put one foot in front of the next and just keep going. So those are some of the lessons that I gathered at my first attempt writing a full book. I got about 45,000 words in before realizing that it was broken and I had to abandon it. But I'm quite grateful for the experience because I think it taught me a lot. And now that I'm starting over with my second attempt, a totally different book that I'm attempting to write, I really hope that I can take those lessons forward and make something even better, because now I kind of know where I went wrong. And so if this next one works, then that's great. I cannot wait to share it with you. But if not, then I'll just make another video just like this, where I talk about all of the lessons that I learned from the next one. Because I have my whole life to be a writer, and so do you. There's absolutely no rush. You don't have to get it right on the first try. All you have to know is that you're committed. And this time, I really do know that I'm gonna be a writer no matter what. So if you relate to that, you're definitely in the right place. If any of this advice resonated with you, or if you've also been dealing with the first draft blues, please let me know in the comments below, because I would love to connect with other aspiring authors. And I wish you all the best on your upcoming manuscript. I know you can do it. Have a great writing session today, and I'll see you next week.